Hi, my name is Ryan, and this video let's create the simple navigation hover effects. Here in my HTML file I have three nav elements and I've given each one of these a class. And inside these nav elements I've added a few anchor tags which are going to form the menu items. And that's all we need for the HTML. Now let's go to our CSS file. Here I've removed the default margin and the padding, and I've given a few styles to the nav elements. Now let's start styling the first navbar. So I'll select the class of navbar1 and I'll give it a background color of 4286F4, which is a shade of blue. Now let's style the anchors within the class of navbar1. So I'll say navbar1 space A, and I'll say text decoration none. We'll give it a color of white. We'll say text transform uppercase. Next we require a border on the top and the bottom, so let's do that. So I'll say border top 4 pixel solid white, and we'll add a border to the bottom as well. This is going to be 4 pixel solid white again. Now we need to add some padding on the top and the bottom, so I'll say padding of 24 pixel on the top and the bottom and 0 on the left and right. So by giving it a padding on the top and the bottom, the borders will move outside the nav bar. And also let's add in a margin to the right of 20 pixel. And now let's start working on the hover state of the anchor tags. So I'll say navbar1 space A colon hover, and on the hover state we need to reduce the padding on the top and the bottom so that the borders come back closer to the menu items. So let's do that. I'll say padding of 6 pixel on the top and bottom and 0 on the left and the right. So when we hover over the menu items, we can see that the borders move back closer to the menu items. Finally, let's give in some transition. So I'll say transition. We want the padding to be transition and the duration is going to be 0.3 seconds. Now let's check it. And here we have the final hover effect. Next, let's move to the second nav bar. I'll come down here and we'll select the class of navbar2 and we'll give it a background color of 20D629, which is a shade of green. Now let's target the anchors within the class of navbar2. First let's say text decoration none. We'll give it a color of white and we'll say text transform uppercase. We'll give it a padding of 0 on the top and bottom, 10 on the left and the right, and we'll also give it a margin of 0 on the top and the bottom, 10 pixel on the left and the right. And now let's start working on the hover state. So I'll say navbar2 space A colon hover, and we'll change the background color to white, and the color of the text is going to be 1B631F. And finally on the hover state we want to increase the padding to 24 pixel on the top and the bottom and 10 pixel on the left and the right. So I'll say 24 pixel on the top and the bottom, 10 pixel on the left and the right. So let's see what we have now. And here we have this background, a white background appearing on hover. And finally let's add in some transition. So I'll say transition. Again we want to transition the padding property and the duration is going to be 0.3 seconds. So let's have a look. And there is our hover effect. And finally, let's move on to our third navbar. So let's select the class of Navbar 3. So I'll say Navbar 3 and we'll give it a background of 333. Now let's select the anchors within the class of Navbar 3. First, we'll set the text decoration to none. We'll say text transform uppercase. We'll give it a color of white. We'll give it a padding of 0 on the top and the bottom, 10 pixel on the left and the right. We'll also give it a margin of 0 on the top and the bottom, 10 pixel on the left and the right. And finally we'll set it display to inline block. Now let's go to the final file for a minute. Now if we hover over the menu items, we can see that there is a rectangular block which moves from the bottom to the top. Now in order to create this rectangular block, we'll be using a pseudo element. So in our case, we'll be using the after pseudo element. So let's do that. I'll go to my CSS file and we'll say navbar 3 space a double colon after, and we'll set the content to nothing. We'll set the display to inline block. We'll set its height to 10 pixel. We'll set the width to 100%. We'll give it a background of F4425F and we'll give it a position of absolute. Now we need to position it in relation to the anchors, so we'll come up here and we'll say position relative. Now let's position it at a distance of 0 from the left, and we'll position it at a distance of negative 35 pixel from the bottom. And finally, we don't want to see the rectangular blocks right now, so we'll come up here in the class of navbar 3 and we'll say overflow hidden. Now let's start working on the hover state. So I'll say navbar 3 space a colon hover double colon after, and on the hover state we want the rectangle block to move at a distance of 40 pixels from the bottom. So I'll say bottom 40 pixel. Now let's have a look, and here you can see the rectangle block. And finally all we need to do is just add in some transition. So I'll say transition bottom of 0.3 seconds, and there is our final hover effect. So these were simple navigation hover effects that you can create in minutes, and I think that's it for this video. Hope you like it. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, have a nice day.